How does one recover from prior infidelity, forgiveness, and lack of attention? Now, those are three very important aspects of your life, and you must handle them all differently. So, how does one recover from prior infidelity? First of all, you have to go through the healing process. You have to address the problem, address the pain, allow yourself to feel all the feels, and it's an entire process. Um, Allow yourself to heal. You have to be honest about how you're feeling. You have to, at some point, forgive the person. Okay, whoever is the person, whether it was an ex or your husband that you're currently with, you have to forgive the person. This is the thing. Part of your journey and part of who you're supposed to be and the love that you're supposed to receive is connected to your ability to forgive. Not saying that you just allow people to treat you any kind of way, because of course you need boundaries and expectate and understanding of expectations in your relationships. But forgiveness is mandatory, because when you do not forgive, bitterness grows, resentment grows, frustration grows. There's absolutely no way you can have a loving relationship while you are harboring unforgiveness towards someone, especially if it's with your husband and a mistake that he's made. Um, but you have to, and as ambitious women, let me take a step back. As ambitious women, sometimes because we're doing so many things and we're so independent and we're so strong-willed and we're so strong-minded, that we jump over the whole process of healing and focus on other things. We don't really address the pain that we're dealing with. But it's mandatory that you allow yourself to go through the process, not to sit in depression, not to sit in a dark place, but you have to allow yourself to feel and go through the emotions and properly define those emotions so that you can present them to God and allow him to do. One of the things that God did when he was approached by the blind man, he said, what do you want? He said, what do you want? Jesus, of course, knew the man was blind. It's not that Jesus didn't know, but God, there's a part that you must play in the healing process. And that part is, it requires for you to be able to speak up and make your request known. Ask so that it can be given. So in order for you to ask properly, you have to be able to really identify where you are so that you can present that to God so that he can do the work that's needed in you. Okay. So going through the healing process, forgiving, that does not mean forgiving and you just keep on letting him, be out in them streets. Of course, I work with women who decided to stay with their husband after infidelity. I coach wives on how to heal, go through the healing process so that they can confidently restore their marriage. I work with women only whose husbands are committed to the marriage. If he's still out in them streets, there's nothing that you can't restore your marriage if he's still out in them streets. Period. Okay, because some women, which is the next question, how do I know if he'll cheat? How, if I should rebuild with my husband? That was one of the next questions. Um, how do I know that it's okay for me to rebuild? And one of the main things is he's not on in the streets anymore. Number one, he's totally committed to the relationship now and committed to rebuilding and committed to doing what's necessary to get y'all to a place of happily ever after. So he has to be committed. Two, he has to own the part that he played in the infidelity. If he is blaming you or pointing the finger at you or saying, well, if you gave me more sex or whatever it is that he'd come up with, if he's not owning full responsibility, that is a red flag. Okay. So number three, he has to be willing to allow you the grace of going through and he has to rebuild the trust is what I really want to say, because it's not a matter of you. So many women contact me and say, well, how can I rebuild trust in my relationship? Your only responsibility in the relationship and rebuilding the marriage is you healing so that you can see and experience the manifestation or the transformation in your husband. Is his responsibility to rebuild the trust. Period. He violated the trust. He must rebuild it. You must heal so that you can see the transformation, because um we don't rebuild based on just his words. We build on his actions. Okay, because he can promise from here until the end of time to do all these wonderful things, but until he's actually doing those things, they're just words. So when it comes to rebuilding trust in your marriage, your only responsibility is to heal so that you can freely and openly see the transformation and accept the transformation from him. Because when you're holding unforgiveness, it's impossible for you to receive from your husband and accept his advances and accept what he's trying to do to restore the marriage. Okay. So, next question: how to stop replaying the affair at, over and over again in your head? That's part of, the Bible tells us to take captive every thought, every single thought. The enemy is going to be, the enemy is about his business. He gonna do his job. As much as we despise the enemy, he is consistent with his job. So it's his job. He's going to be throwing those thoughts and throwing the memories of what your husband did and how he did it. He's going to try to bombard your mind. But this is the thing that I love about God. In his word, he said, take captive every thought. Now, there's so many aspects of that. But number one, in order for him to say, take captive every thought, he's already letting you know that you're going to be bombarded with thoughts that are not aligned with where you want to go. You're going to be bombarded with thoughts that are going to try to keep you from experiencing life the way God ordained. So he's already given you a heads up. That's the part of the scripture that you need to identify. Don't be shocked that you're having these thoughts. Don't be like, oh my gosh, why do I keep thinking about what he did? Because the enemy is about his business. And he knows that as long as he keeps you from thinking, hey, boo, he knows that as long as he keeps you from being focused on God and healing and restoration, then he's going to be able to destroy your marriage. He doesn't want your marriage to be restored. He doesn't want you to have a good relationship. He wants to do everything that he can to eliminate the blessing that God has. Now, what is marriage? Marriage represents the love of Christ. When God said that your husband is to love you the way Christ loves the church, how did Christ love the church? Christ sacrificed his entire life so that he can live. It wants his glasses off. Oh, okay. Sorry. He does that so that he can. I'm looking at this thing over here and I need to just go get rid of this. Okay. So I got distracted and shouldn't have done that. Okay. Got a little distracted. I shouldn't have done that. But anywho, so if you're checking in now, I am live in the Facebook group and I'm also live here on YouTube. Okay. So we're talking about the enemy and what the enemy is going to try to do. And he's going to do his best to try to attack you and bombard your thoughts. So number one, take captive your thoughts. What he's telling you also is you already to control your thoughts. Do not be a victim. Do not act like you're a victim of just randomness happening to you. You have the power to control your thoughts. It's kind of like when bill collectors are calling. Now, some people, they don't have issues with bill collectors because, all their bills is paid in on time. But say, you're getting a phone call from a bill collector or someone or an ex or just someone you don't feel like being bothered with. Just because the number comes up on your phone does not mean that you have to answer the call. You can let that go to voicemail and then you can quickly delete it. You could just hang up on that call and just don't and disregard it. So why would you sit there and allow the enemy to continue to speak to you? Wake up every morning knowing that there is an enemy that's prowling like a lion trying to harm you. He's going to think of different ways to attack you, but the word already says you have power. Take captive every thought. So in regards to replaying, now it takes time and it takes practice. It doesn't come easy. It's not just one day you wake up and say, okay, I'm going to control my thoughts. Because the minute you say that you're going to control your thoughts, guess what's going to happen? The enemy's like, oh, okay, well, let's see how she control her thoughts. Your husband's going to say something that's going to trigger you. Something's going to happen at work that's going to trigger you. All these things are going to trigger you. That's just how the end, that's just how the process works. So it takes intentional practice at taking captive every thought. And it also said, the word also says to cast your cares. So not only are you controlling your thoughts, but when you realize that you're struggling, Lord, help me in this area. Help me to release this. Lord, continue to give me the power. Lord, remind me of who I am. You know, you're presenting those issues. Lord, I have this issue. You're taking those issues and you're giving them to God. Whatever it is you're struggling with, you present those issues to Him so that He can deal with it. So, as far as, and if you are joining in, you can go ahead, drop your questions, and I will answer them live. I am live in the Facebook group and I'm live here on YouTube. Welcome to Ask Me Anything. So, as far as replaying the thoughts over and over in your head, you have to heal. You have to go through the healing process because time does not heal all wounds. I don't care what your granny said. I don't care what your sister said. Time does not heal all wounds. It's kind of like if your child fell off their bike and broke their arm. You just don't tell them, all right, get up and time's gonna heal all wounds. It's gonna heal crooked, it's gonna be disfigured, it's gonna be everything except for what it needs to be. The same intentionality you would take with if your child fell off a bike and broke their arm, you would take them to the hospital. You would have them check it out. You would have them put a cast on. You would have them do all the things to make sure that it healed properly. You need to have that same intentionality with your heart, with your emotions. Go through the process of allowing yourself to heal and allowing yourself to take care of yourself the same way you would with your child. Okay, so today I covered how to recover from infidelity and forgiveness. I covered some of the red flags of knowing when to rebuild and if it's really something that will probably work. And then how to stop replaying the affair over and over in your head. Now, like I said before, if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in a link. And I have about maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, so I'm going to answer one more question. Um, can God restore your marriage after infidelity? Um, 100% certifiably, yes. Let me say this clearly. Yes, 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 yes. God can restore your marriage after infidelity. He can. If He can part the Red Sea and allow the children of Israel to walk on dry land, not wet land, dry land. God was very specific when He made sure we knew it was dry land. Okay. If He can raise Lazarus from the dead, if He can provide a ram in the bush, think of all the miracles in it, all the miracles that we've seen in the Bible. And not just that, think of all the miracles that we've seen, even it's now 2022. Depending on when you see this, you might see this as a replay later on. We survived a pandemic. Over 300,000, who knows what the number is now? Over 300,000 people lost their lives because of this pandemic. You, because you're watching this, is proof that God is still in the miracle working business. You did not lose your life. How many people survived? How many people got COVID and survived? You might have gotten COVID and survived. You don't have a sad story to tell regarding yourself. But there's so many miracles, time and time and again, that we see them and what God has done in our lives, which is partially why when in my coaching program, one of the assignments that wives are, it's mandatory that they do is they write in their journal every single morning. They write 10 to 20 things that they're grateful for, 10 to 20 things that God did, miracles that He performed, as a friendly reminder that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. My husband worked the entire time during the pandemic. He wasn't home at all. Because the facility that he works at with children, um, they had to be there. And not one time, I'm telling you, God is good. And not at one time did he have to be hospitalized. Not at one time did he bring home sickness to us. That's not because I'm the Lysol queen and I'm always spraying because I am the Lysol queen. That's not necessarily because of all the vitamins. It's a combination of all the things, but the grace of God. So, can God restore your marriage after infidelity? 100% yes. But it requires some work. It does require some, it's not easy. And let's be clear, um, the women that go through my coaching program, most of them, when they do restore their marriage, it's better than it was before. Why is it better than it was before? Because they are now intentional about doing the things to have a healthy, thriving marriage. They're intentional about date nights. They're intentional about family meetings. They're intentional about having tough conversations. They're intentional about having tough conversations and not popping off. They're intentional about apologizing. They're intentional about about how to have and experience their happily ever after. They're intentional about expressing expectations with their spouse. So yes, it can be done. Like I said before, number one, he has to be dedicated to rebuilding the marriage. If he is dedicated to rebuilding the marriage and he's no longer in the streets, yes, it can be done. If you are surrendered, it requires two people who are now surrendered to the Lord and obeying the Lord. That's what it takes. Two people that are now willing to commit to whatever it is that God has on the table for them, willing to lay their burdens at his feet and then release their pain, release their frustration, release their resentment, and trust God again. Because if you've been experiencing infidelity, unfortunately, most people, if they're honest, they're also doubting God. They're also like, God, if you let this happen to me, how can I trust that it won't happen again? And that's part of the process. And that's an honest dialogue. God's not sitting there mad at you because you looking at him a little sideways, with all due respect. Now, we're not cussing God now, but you might say, in the midst of your fear, you're saying, Lord, how do I know this won't happen again? I'm scared. This is true. Okay. And God already knows you're feeling that way. So why not be honest with him? Okay. So if you've experienced infidelity, I have an amazing quiz, an infidelity assessment where it shows you exactly where you are on the forgiveness process, on the forgiveness and on the healing journey. Okay, it's a complimentary assessment. It tells you exactly where you are, and it gives you your personalized healing process. Your exactly how you should do it. So you'll go to connectingloveandmarriage.com/quiz. Okay. Connectingloveandmarriage /.com. No, I said that all kind of wrong. Hey, Darlene, my boo. Love you so much. So go to connectingloveandmarriage.com /quiz. And realistically, any of the links that you've ever seen from me. If you go in the description, you'll see it. If you go to my bio, you'll see it. If you go to Connecting Love and Marriage, What's New, you'll see the link there. Take the assessment. It's a 2-minute assessment. It'll let you know exactly where you are in a healing journey, and it'll give you your personalized healing recommendation, your personalized guide on how to heal. Okay, go ahead and grab that. And feel free, if you're watching this later on, comment, let me know if you have any other questions, or click the link in the description so that you can go ahead and submit your questions for my next Ask Arrettres, okay, which will be next week. And also, I have a workshop coming up soon, the week of Thanksgiving, that I'm super duper excited about. The ladies in my group voted, and I do know the topic, and I'm gonna announce that. So if you're not on my list yet, you definitely want to get on the list, because I'm gonna announce that to the women in the list probably this Friday. Not Friday, this Wednesday. I'll announce it so everyone can start getting registered. Okay, so Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has blessed you. Feel free to click the link in my bio, in my description. So go ahead and get on my list. All right. Love you. Bye.